Okay. We've got another problem we're going to try to complete. It's a quadratic equation. We're going to try to complete it by completing the square. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we did before. I'm going to move C. So how do I move C? Here we go. We're going to add 6 to both sides. And this might get a little bit complicated, right? And what that gives me is this. It gives me 3x squared plus 9x equals 6. Now the problem with this is that we'd like to complete the square, but it's a little more difficult when my leading coefficient is in 3. So we factor it out. Does 3 factor out of both these pretty easy? I want to factor out my 3. So I'm going to write it as 3 times the quantity x squared plus 3x equals 6. And quite honestly, I could right now divide by 3. I'm not going to yet because that option isn't going to show you itself later on in other problems. I'm going to keep this here for now, all right? And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to complete the square. Remember, it's half the middle term squared. So I'm going to add that to both sides. I'm going to come back though. So I'm going to do half of the middle term. Would we agree that's half the middle term? Yeah. Squared. I'm going to add that. So I'm going to do it just on the left for now, and then we're going to talk about what just happened. So inside here, I've got x squared plus 3x plus, and 3 squared is 9, and 2 squared is 4. I'm going to pause there just really quick as you get that written down there. So I've added half the middle term squared. So inside this parenthesis, I've added 9/4. But how many 9/4 are there? 3 of them. I've really added 3 times 9/4 to the left side. Even though in the parentheses there's only 9/4, the left side has 3 times 9/4. Notice if I distribute that 3 back in there, I'm going to multiply it by 9/4. And if I multiply 3 by 9/4, what I'm really adding to the left side, which I also have to add to the right side, is, well, that's 27/4, isn't it? I've really added 27/4 to the left side. So to balance out the equation, I have to do it to the other side as well. So it's kind of a weird thing that we got to remember. It's a little tricky that when there's a number outside of the parentheses, and we add something to the parentheses, we have to multiply them together to figure out our actual change on the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and do that over here. I know 6 is really equal to 24/4. So I'm going to add 24/4 and 27/4. What do I get, 51/4? Do you guys agree with that? Is that okay? I could divide by 3 now. I'm not going to. I'm going to go ahead and factor. All right, so this gives me 3. Then I've got x squared plus, oh, let's do it. Let's factor right now. Square root of the first term. X, middle sign, plus square root of the last term. What's square root of 9? 3. And the square root of 4 is 2. Please notice it's just this number again. Right? A lot of people never even write 9/4. They just write 3/2 squared in there. That quantity is squared, and we got 51/4. And now we're going to go ahead and solve. All right? I'm not sure how much room I have, but we're going to do one more step here. So how do I get rid of the 3? I'm going to divide this side by 3, which is the same as multiplying by 1/3. And that'll give me this. That'll give me x plus 3/2 squared equals, well, 3 divided into 3 is 1. I can reduce right now. Goes into 51, what is that, 17 times. That gives me 17/4 over here. All right. Do I have room to write up here on the camera, bud? Do I have room out here?
There.
There we go. Cool. So what do I do to both sides now? Someone said it. Square root. Someone whispered it. Square root right there. And that gives me this. I'm going to come up here if that's okay. I'm going to say, so let's bring it right to here. We're going to say x plus 3/2 equals positive or negative. And let's think about that. Do I know the square root of 17? No, so I'm going to write rad 17 on top. And the square root of 4 is what? 2. Positive, negative, rad 2. We're actually almost done, right? So how do I solve for x now? Subtract 3/2. Minus 3/2. I'm going to write this 2 ways, right? The right side is just x. I'm going to keep that sign with this number, negative 3/2 plus or minus radical 17 over 2. I keep writing a 12 for some reason. Let me fix that. Now think about it. here's my next step. I don't want to keep it like this because there's an easier way to write it. When I add or subtract fractions, do I change the denominator? No, you keep the denominator, right? So I can actually write this entire thing over what denominator? 2. So I'm going to put this over 2. And I'm going to say negative 3 plus or minus rad 17 over 2. Final answer. Will you do me a favor? Will you pause and publish and see if we can get that online?